Hey Waffle Gang, I do hope you are well. My name is Mark and today we're checking out some more Reddit stories. And if you do love a Reddit story, why not consider hitting that like, subscribe, maybe that notification bell too. Let's crack on with today's first story. Much love, guys. Now, today's collection of stories is coming from the OhNoConsequences subreddit, where people are genuinely shocked by the consequences of their own actions. And let's get straight into the first story, which comes from Common Efficiency 338. It was titled on the OhNoConsequences subreddit of evicted because of an EpiPen prank. But the original post was called "Am I the Arsehole Here for Kicking Out My Brother and Nephew because he played a dangerous prank on my daughter." My brother and his son, Eli, 9, recently got evicted because my brother lost his job. My wife and I took them in because we have more room in our house than my aging parents have in their condo. My wife and I have a daughter, Naomi, 12. Now, my brother considers himself a jokester. And it was funny when we were kids, but in my opinion, it's immature at his age. He passed this on to Eli, which is funny since he's 9. Eli's favorite prank is hiding other people's things. Naomi is deathly allergic to many common things, so having an EpiPen on hand is absolutely necessary. 2 weeks ago, Eli hid Naomi's EpiPen and she freaked out. She wasn't having an allergic reaction at the time, but still. The thing is, the EpiPen was on a shelf which Eli is too short to reach. My brother admitted to helping Eli with his prank and I chewed him out about it. I told him that if he or Eli hid Naomi's EpiPen again, I'd kick them out. I explained how Naomi could die without it, and my brother seemed to understand. Last week, Naomi actually did have an allergic reaction and needed her EpiPen, and it wasn't where she had put it. Eli rushed up to the guest room to get it, and thank goodness we were able to inject her before it got really bad. After I was done helping my daughter, I told my brother to get packing. He said that I wasn't being fair because Eli had stolen it on his own time, and that it was just a prank, and Eli's just a little kid, etc. Pretty much everyone is pissed at me because my parents really don't have that much space for 2 extra people in their home. They're calling me heartless for kicking them out over a kid's prank. Whenever I see the line, such and such considers themselves as a jokester, I'm always like, oh no, here we go. And of course, it's a not the arsehole, and it's not even close. The brother got massive warning the first time around that when that told him that, Naomi could die without her EpiPen. And instead of taking it, this item is totally off bounds from playing a prank on because it could kill someone, the kid did it again. And the fact that Eli rushed to go and get it afterwards doesn't redeem him, right? And anyone, the family, calling this heartless is just off their rocker. And I think they just don't want them moving in with them, to be quite honest. But anyone defending it with, Eli's just a kid also falls apart really quickly because Eli didn't just come up with that prank alone. He needed his dad to help him reach that shelf in the first place. And just, overall that their behavior has become a risk to Naomi, her life pretty much. Yeah, automatically they get kicked out. That's the way it is, right? A commenter raises a great point straight away, saying, what if Eli hadn't been home when Naomi had the allergic reaction and you all couldn't find the EpiPen? Another commenter says, I have family members who are just as dense about their own immaturity with other family members, also dismissing their horrible behavior, and I avoid them like the plague. I would also be so enraged if someone endangered the life of my child like that. I would not even care if I was the arsehole. QT lady says, nah, that's bullshit. Brother was fucking warned. He should have immediately gone to Eli and told him that, at the very least, he wasn't allowed to play that specific prank anymore. If he was any kind of father, Eli would have listened. I'm especially certain because Eli knew enough to run for the EpiPen when Naomi had a reaction. So I'm not sure if Brother Dear had a talking to his son at all. Terribly sorry about the grandparents, but they should be more angry at the brother in my opinion. And it was overwhelmingly a not the arsehole in that situation. But what do you guys make of this situation? Holy moly. Just what goes through their mind, right? Anyway, let us know your thoughts down in the comments below. And let's move on to another story. This story comes from Queen of Meh 1987. And it says, kid breaks stuff and parents are surprised they have to pay for it. My night job is at a specialty pet food and treat store, And we also offer grooming and a self-wash grooming station where you can come in and wash your pet. I had a couple come in with their human son, who's about 9 years old, to wash their dog. The couple went in with the dog and left their son to wander around the store. As I'm by myself, I didn't notice he was unsupervised until they had already gone in and started washing their dog. I spent 15 minutes finishing my baking, taking care of customers, and following this kid around to clean up after him. He was grabbing random toys and playing with them, then setting them down wherever, bouncing all the tennis balls, grabbing leashes off the shelf and pretending they were lassos. He was even bothering my customers, asking them random questions as they tried to shop. After I asked him 3 times to stop messing with things and other people, he went over to our baked treats table. I knocked on the self-wash door and asked the parents to please bring their son into the wash with them, or to let him sit in the car while they finish, and they told me that they were almost done, and that their son was never a problem. I explained that he was disturbing other customers and playing with random items that I was having to clean up, and the woman looked me right in the eyes and said, "Yeah, that's your job." I told her my job was to run the store, not to babysit customers' children, and she rolled her eyes at me and said they were almost done. I come back to the sales floor and the kid had crumbled 3 cakes and a whole bunch of treats, as well as snapped a bunch of bully sticks and other dried treats. He smiles and bounces off. I start to gather and ring up the items. The parents come out of the self-wash and I add that to the transaction and tell them that the total is $149.76. Both their mouths drop and the guy says, $150 to wash my fucking dog. I say, no sir, the self-wash was $16, the rest is to cover what your son destroyed. The mum says her son didn't destroy anything, and I gesture to the pile of broken cakes and treats. Actually mum, he did. He broke all of this after I asked you to please supervise him. She started arguing and saying that I must have broke them all because I didn't like having a son in the store. Yes, because I love baking a bunch of stuff just to destroy it. Yep, you got me. I had a feeling this was going to be the reaction, so I already had video from our cameras ready to go on my phone to show her. This isn't your son walking over to our table and smashing those cakes and treats. This isn't your son going to the bully bar and snapping them in half. She didn't say anything for a second, and then told me she didn't think they should have to pay for them. I told her that her child broke them after I asked her to watch him or let him sit in the car, so it was their responsibility to cover our losses. She asked to speak to the manager and was very disappointed when I pointed to my name tag that has manager under my name. You're speaking to a manager, ma'am. Anything else I can help you with today? If not, your total is $149.76. She glared at me, but put her card in and paid and they left, looking like they were screaming at the kid the whole way to the car. Anyone else have fun work stories like this? The manager section, I'm pointing to the name tag with manager on it, reminded me of a video that was going viral some time back where it's like on a harbor or something and they rented boats out and a lady went into this place and was saying she wants to hire a yacht or something, and the lady was like, we ain't got no yachts. So she says, I want to talk to your manager then. And then the lady working in the shop pretends to like go down behind the desk like it's a set of stairs or something, and then comes back up and then says, now you're speaking to the manager. And it's just the same lady because she was the manager all along. And then the woman has a complete meltdown. I don't know if it was a skit or whatever it was at the time, but it was funny. But people started sharing some of their stories in their workplace. One said, when I was a teenager, I worked at Round Table Pizza in a bad neighborhood. One night, this family comes in, 2 toddlers in tow, and proceeds to drink 2 pitchers of beer at a booth, leaving their children to wander around under the tables. I was working the pizza oven, which is a big conveyor belt heated to about 500 Fahrenheit. At the corner of my eye, I saw one of the kids wandering towards the oven, hands out ready to touch a scalding hot pizza coming out of the oven. My babysitting instincts kicked in, and I scooped the kid up before he got hurt, and he started screaming. It took a minute, but the mum got up and started screaming at me that I hurt her kid. I was trying to explain I was protecting him, but she wouldn't let me. She ripped the kid out of my arms with so much force that I fell backwards and screamed at me to never touch her son again. Manager came over and asked what was going on, and the mum tried to say I hit her son, wouldn't even let me talk. The manager was just like, I guarantee my employee didn't do that. I saw your kid wander into the employee area from the cameras in back. You're lucky my employee thought quickly. I'll let you finish your meal, but you're lucky if I don't forward the footage of you assaulting my minor employee after she protected your unsupervised child to CPS. The lady's mouth was just on the floor. She left, and I never saw that family again. Another commenter says, watch the kid throw a tantrum in a Walmart and destroy several bottles of wine by running down the aisle and sweeping his hand down the shelves. Yeah, his mum tried to leave without paying. Multiple witnesses with phones recorded the kid. Police were called. Apparently she's banned from Albertsons because of a similar incident. It was wild watching her try to attack store employees who were trying to handle the situation. That commenter always said the kid in question was 14, was told no for something he wanted. Damn, I was expecting that to be like a toddler or something. Another commenter says, my brother once in a supermarket asked a child that was taking all the magazines out of the shelves by the checkout and shaking the contents onto the floor one by one to stop doing it. The mother turns around and said, you shouldn't tell my child to do that. Brother said, no, you are quite correct. You should, was his reply. Classic. Expensive says, worked at a DVD rental store. Lady and child of about 4 years old comes in. She complains about a DVD replacement charge on her account. I look it up and it's for a scratched kid's DVD. She argues about it and says it wasn't scratched. I show her the DVD and it's completely destroyed and looks like someone used it to figure skate across concrete. She goes, my kids never touch the DVDs. I put the disc in and out. They never even touch the case. I said, oh, so they don't do that? As I point behind her to her child pulling out 15 plus DVDs from the shelf and 2 of them have the disc out on the floor. She quickly paid and left. That story brought me back to the good old days of entitled parents. How about you guys? Any of you guys worked in retail and dealt with a parent or two? Let us know your thoughts down in the comments below, and let's move on to another story. Now this one was titled on the OhNoConsequences subreddit as, why is my teenage son no longer speaking with me after I purposely mentor the bully who has tormented him for years? With the original story coming from Substantial Egg 1971, and the original title was, am I the arsehole here for telling my mum she is dead to me if she mentors my bully? So my 16 male mum, 40s, is a teacher at my school. Our school has a special elective you can take, in which is being a teacher's aide during your elective period. It's mostly stuff like grading papers for them, making copies, mentoring, etc. It's pretty much always just teacher's favorite student at the time. I found out at the beginning of the semester that my mum chose Dave, 17 male, to be her TA. Dave has made my life a living nightmare since middle school. He has bullied me mercilessly, both physically and emotionally since 6th grade. I don't want to get into everything he's done to me, but everyone is fully aware of it, including the school and my parents. There have been countless meetings with school administration and suspensions on his end, but it never stopped him. Since we've been in high school, I haven't had to see him as much, which is a relief, but the times that I do are always terrible. When I found out that he was her new TA, I was obviously very hurt and confused. I asked her why she would want to spend extra time with someone who made my life so terrible. She said that she had him in one of her classes, and that he isn't such a bad kid, but he has had a really terrible home life that she can't tell me about that makes him act out. For the record, my mum has always had a soft spot for kids who come from bad homes. I reminded her of all the things he had done to me, and she said that she understands, but he really needs help right now. I told her I get that, but why does it have to be you? We have a huge school full of teachers and staff who can mentor him. Why does it have to be you? She told me to stop being selfish, and some kids have it harder than I can imagine, and she's just trying to help. I was honest with her and told her that if she continued to have him as her aide, she was dead to me. She was choosing him over me, and she would no longer be my mother. I would no longer talk to her, and the minute I turned 18, I would be moving out, and she would never hear from me again. She rolled her eyes and said I was being dramatic, but after a couple of days of ignoring her, I was grounded. It didn't change my mind, and my dad then tried to force me to talk to her. I still refused, so they pretty much took everything away from me one by one for the past few weeks. I no longer have my car, computer, guitar, and most recently my art supplies, and I have to come home from school and go straight to my room, and I'm not allowed out except dinner until I start talking to her again. They don't realize that this is just strengthening my resolve. I'm going to sit in this empty room every day silently until I'm 18, and then they'll never see me again. My mum keeps coming in crying and begging me to talk to her, which makes me feel kinda bad, but she still won't remove Dave as her aide. Am I taking this too far? I just feel so betrayed. Damn, I can't imagine how painful that would be. As I always tell you in these stories about bullying, someone that was bullied myself, and I'm just trying to imagine a family member taking that bully side in any way. Yes, bully might have a horrible home life, and I can sympathize with that. Like, I strongly suspect my bully had a pretty shitty home life, but that doesn't make me like him anymore, He decided to take out his frustration, his anger, whatever it was, on me when, I was totally innocent to him, so, fuck him. So I totally get why OP would feel absolutely betrayed in this situation. And the dismissiveness from the mum in this as well, stop being so selfish, all this kind of stuff. It's just awful. And then taking all your stuff away from you. And it's like we see a lot of stories like this, different scenarios sometimes, but when they turn 18, they want to be gone. And I can totally get that if nothing's going to change and they're only punishing you for having very valid feelings. I can get why you'd feel that way. But you got roughly 1 to 2 years? I think the reality is, do you want to spend them like this with nothing in an empty room with them constantly punishing you? Because you still deserve to be living your life the way that you want to. I mean, there's potential to get all your stuff back here and then still do what you want to do if nothing changes within that period when you do turn 18. But we have a couple of updates on this one as well. The first one said, I'm sorry I stopped answering everyone's questions. I just kind of freaked out when this blew up out of nowhere. And I almost deleted it a few times because I was scared someone at school would see it and recognize me. Everyone letting me know that it's not my fault helped a lot though, so I felt less embarrassed about someone I know potentially seeing it. Nothing has really changed, but a lot of you made a good point that if I'm really going to go this route, then I need to come up with a plan for what I'm going to do when I get out. I considered the military like some people suggested, but then I remembered my school has a special trade program. You go to our school for half a day, then spend the other half at our local community college taking trade classes. I think depending on what you are doing, you can get an associate's degree or whatever certifications you need by the time you graduate. I went to my guidance counselor during lunch today and told her I wanted to switch to that program. She acted really surprised and asked, why did I want to change now, since I'm already taking AP classes and I'm on the college track? I told her I didn't want to talk about it, but I would need to be ready for independence when I graduated, and this seemed like the best way. She said it might be too late to change this semester, but she would look into it for me and let me know. So then OP comes in with a full update and said, to everyone who said my mum was sleeping with Dave, you were right. Just kidding, you're all weirdos and watch too much porn. A lot has actually happened since last week, and while nothing is really fixed, I think things are going in the right direction. On Friday, I got called out of class to the guidance counselor. When I got there, my mum and the assistant principal were there as well. The counselor asked me to sit down and said that me changing tracks from college to trade, like I mentioned in my last post, was a big decision, and she wanted to sit down with my mum and me to figure out what was really the best for my future. She first asked me if I would fully explain why I wanted to switch. I explained the whole situation from my perspective and how I was being punished. I said if this is how I was going to be treated from now on, I wanted to become independent as soon as possible, and going to college would have me relying on my parents for longer than I would like. She then asked my mum if she had anything she would like to add. My mum tried to downplay the whole situation at first and made it look like I was just being stubborn and disrespectful. But as the counselor asked her more questions, it became pretty clear that my side was truth. After this, the AP stepped in and said that a teacher's aide was not worth all of this turmoil, and that Dave would be switched to with another teacher. The counselor then asked me if this would help me start working things out with my mum. I said not really, because it wasn't even her choice, and she hasn't even admitted she's done anything wrong. She then asked my mum if she was willing to apologize for anything that had happened. My mum gave a half-hearted apology, where she said things had gone overboard, and she never meant to hurt me so much. The counselor asked if I would like to apologize for anything as well, and I said not really, but nobody pressed me on it. The counselor then said about my transfer. It was too late for this semester. What she suggested is that my mum and I, and possibly my dad, should go to family counselling for the rest of the semester. I would stay in my current classes, my parents would give me all my stuff back, and we could see if we could come to some kind of peace before next semester. She then asked my mum that if after that I still had not changed my mind, would she accept the class changes. My mum said no at first because she wanted me to go to college, but I told her that if she had already failed me as a mother once, please don't do it again. She got really quiet and said she would agree to it if that was what I really wanted. When I got home, all my stuff was returned to me. I also started talking to my mum again. I just kind of felt like there wasn't a point to ignoring her anymore. I don't treat her like a mother or anything anymore, but I answer her if she asks me a question. It just feels like that now I have a plan. A lot of my anger is gone and I just see her as a person who happens to live in my house. We haven't scheduled our first counseling session yet, but I don't see it changing much anyway. The damage is done, so I don't see myself changing my mind. That's pretty much it. I probably won't update again unless something crazy happens or something. Thank you to everyone who gave me good advice. And I think the top comment on that update pretty much said it all on this one, and said, wow, that is a kick-ass counselor. I'm impressed. Like, shit, I have to be the adult here, really. So mum, you are wrong. You were supposed to be a professional and you had to disappoint your own kid. Gross, you are off. Hey kid with potential, have your stuff back and please be a better person than your mum. Like me. Lol. OP, thanks for the update. I wish your mum was smarter. Your school's counselor is awesome, freaking by far the best I've ever heard of. And you should stick with your plans. I don't think there will be a counselor in college to put your parents in their places. I've read too many Reddits of parents threatening to not pay their kids college. If you cut their wings sooner, perhaps you won't have to endure Thanksgiving, Christmas and birthdays being trapped with their plans. See ya. But now I'm going to turn this one to you guys. What do you guys make of this situation? Let us know your thoughts down in the comments below and let's move on to another story. Now, our next story, it comes from Ramen Noodles 620. And it says, freeloading relatives that don't want to chip in on living costs, move out and now regret moving out. Some of my relatives moved to the US a few months ago. My parents let one of the families, Uncle Ben, Aunt May, and two cousins Mary and Stacy, live with them. Great name selection there. Cracking. My parents live in a very nice, walkable city. Their apartment is in a great location close to public transit, but in a quiet area. Unfortunately, it's also very expensive. My parents' apartment would easily cost $4.5k to $5k a month to rent where they live, so despite it being a tight living situation, it was really the only option currently for the relatives who just moved. They had basically no money, no credit, and their jobs would be limited to minimum wage jobs. We fronted the cost of their immigration fees, got them phones, found my cousin's free English classes at a public library a 5-minute walk from my parents, got my cousin's jobs at Dunks, that's about 1.5 miles from the house, and a 10 to 15 minute bus ride away. My parents found my uncle a job at Dunks slightly further away, but still less than 2 miles. However, he couldn't get past training. My parents continued to try to find him jobs, but it was taking more time than expected. Aunt May refused to work. Still, both the cousins had jobs, so they had some income. My parents found one of the cousins a job at a bakery, but she didn't like the hours. I got the other one an interview at a grocery store that would have paid more, but she missed the phone interview. That's all to say, we were trying to get them jobs and doing our best to find jobs for people with limited English, while also trying to set them up for a future success via English classes, applying for various public housing and getting them some work experience. After 4 to 5 months, my parents approached my aunt and uncle about them starting to chip in for groceries and utilities, since the two cousins had been working for a couple of months at that point. My parents went from having 2 people and a cat to now having 6 people and a cat to house and feed. My dad went from getting groceries 1 to 2 times a month to having to go every week. My parents aren't well off either. They live a frugal lifestyle, and my dad was fortunate to buy the apartment they live in a long time ago, or else we would have been priced out a long time ago. Apparently, that was too much of an ask, so they said they will move out. Completely fine, since nobody was forcing them to stay, and it wasn't doing my parents any favors. The whole time my relatives lived with my parents, my aunt and uncle would constantly mention that they had other family and friends in other parts of the US that would help them out. Where these family and friends were when I spent hours helping with their immigration applications, fronting their immigration fees, buying them phones to use in the US, or even getting them winter clothes, I have no idea. So my dad said, fine, if that's what you want to do, then move out since you don't want to pay us anything and have all these other people that can help you. Pretty much a week after the conversation about chipping in, they had someone from my aunt's side of the family fly from Michigan and then drive them 13 plus hours from where we are to Michigan. Yes, my relatives were correct in having other people that can help them. Before they moved, I suggested my uncle or my aunt and uncle go to Michigan first and see how it is before making such a big change. He refused. We even found places in New Jersey where the cost of living was lower. They could have jobs and still be close enough to all our family for visits, but they refused because they didn't trust a family friend who lived in that area that offered to help. The reason they didn't trust this family friend is because he had the audacity to say in order to find an apartment, he'd need to put a deposit down for it. He wouldn't front it for them. Once they moved to Michigan, they quickly realized the help there is more limited than what they had here, and it's not quite as nice over there. My uncle kept talking about factory jobs he could do out in Michigan, and he got one. However, it's not quite as cushy as he was imagining, since they are basically out of the home from 5 in the morning to 4 to 5 p.m. My aunt even decided she now can work despite telling us no earlier. The area itself is not as nice, and my cousins don't feel safe walking around. There is no good way for them to get around without a car, which they don't have. They are being nickel and dimed for everything that their friends over there are helping them out with. Not quite the same situation they had while living with my parents. When my aunt and uncle have called me, it's all complaints about how tough the work is, how his blood pressure is high, how my aunt can't sleep with the stress. They want to move back closer, etc. Even one time said something along the lines of, "I'm of course not asking you to help, but we're having a tough time." Even one time said something along the lines of, "I'm of course not asking you to help, but we're having a tough time" tone. Basically being one of expecting me to offer to help in some way. I've just said hopefully things will get better because what else am I supposed to say? At this point, I rarely answer their calls because it will just be complaints and whining. Zitavu says, we call those Pam calls, but they basically just piss and moan. I've had this with relatives. They think anyone with middle class income is more than wealthy enough to give free room and board to family indefinitely. Same relatives that call my mum asking her to send money and care packages. She's now on a fixed income, so that has stopped. Twice my parents had relatives move in with them for multiple years, typically overstay their visa, and was to the point of considering having one deported when they finally got the hint and went home. Family should be cherished, and the best way to cherish them is when they are far away and seldom in contact. Another commenter says, when I was 21 years old, I moved to the big city. I had a nice apartment, and being young and carefree, I would invite or allow any of my old friends to come stay with me. I had a lot of visitors, and I observed that they were only two distinct types of people who visited. And the distribution was binary. Everybody was either one type or the other. One type of friend would come for a visit, be a joy as a companion, be a good guest, and within a few weeks they found a job and apartment of their own. The other type of friend would show up, make a mess in my house, complain about everything, complain that things back home were bad, complain that the city was too difficult. Maybe find a job and then complain the job is horrible, and then complain that my apartment is too small. That second type of person, I would simply remind them that they cannot stay in my apartment without paying rent. Lisa Knows Best says, so instead of chipping in for groceries and utilities, they decided it was a better idea to move halfway across the country, where they would have to pay all the rent, all the utilities, and all of their groceries. They didn't think that one through, did they? Now they don't have local family support, don't make enough money, and are exhausted with what they have to do to get by. It's a hard lesson they learn, but hopefully they actually learn from it. Please don't let them move back. Let them tough it out. Damn, what do you guys make of this situation? Let us know your thoughts down in the comments below. And just a huge thank you for being here today, getting involved in the stories, your love, your support, your time. It always means the absolute world to me. So thank you so much for being here. Truly, it's absolutely amazing. And hopefully I'll see you in the next one. Take care and much love.